Hello and welcome to HR Digest, proudly brought to you by the Sedat Consult. At the Sedat Consult, we offer services such as HR support and advisory and outsourcing, talent acquisition and management, staff outsourcing, compensation and benefits, amongst others. Contact Sedat Consults for all your HR needs, and you'd be glad you did. I'm excited about something, and I hope you are also looking out for the annual Sedat HR Digest soiree. This year, we are slated to have it on the 1st of August 2025. Details on the soiree will be displayed on the screen for you to mark it on your calendars, and I hope to see us all there. I'll be glad to see each and every one of us there. I am Etonam Bovi, your host for today. And today we are talking about one of the most crucial aspects of organizational success, which is measuring employee satisfaction. And before we go any further, Happy African Union Day to all our listeners across Africa and in the diaspora. Today we honor unity, resilience, and the ongoing journey of growth across the continent. And we reckon that these are values we also see reflected in strong, inclusive workplaces. Today, we are joined by Mr. Abubakar Kwame Isuman, an expert in HR leadership and employee engagement, to unpack the real meaning behind satisfaction matrix and how HR can use this data to drive impact and not just tick boxes. Would love to hear from you, our listeners, as well. Please drop your name in the comment section and tell us where you're tuning in from. If you've got any thoughts on today's topic, or you have any questions for our engagements today, please feel free and drop it in the comment sections, and we'll be glad to engage you and address all the questions accordingly. So without going any further, would love to welcome on board Mr. Abubakar Isuman to start this engagement. Mr. Isuman.
Hi, good afternoon,
Good afternoon,
Etona.
Mr. Isuman. You're
Hello to
welcome.
everyone watching us. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be here to share knowledge with ourselves. Of course, we are here to learn. We learn from our audience, and we also share some information that we've picked up on our career journey. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Right, and we are pleased to have you on the HR Digest once again to share some great nuggets to help us navigate on this journey. Thank you very much for coming on today.
My
Right,
pleasure.
yes. So today we are dissecting the topic measuring employee satisfaction. And we reckon that employee satisfaction surveys are one of the processes HR professionals would always want to engage in, just to see how engaged or view how engaged employees are. So we find ourselves gathering a lot of data on employee satisfaction. And I'm curious to know, in your experience, Mr. Isuman, what are the most common reasons why this data doesn't translate into meaningful actions? And how can HR leaders overcome these roadblocks?
Okay, thank you, Etonam. That's a loaded question, and a very important one for that matter. Yes, organizations engage in collecting data or surveys on employees, but most often than not, these don't translate into meaningful action, and there are a plethora of reasons why these things happen. First and foremost, I will talk about lack of executive management by most often than not. These exercises are seen as HR activities, and so they don't tend to get the support of management. And when that happens, obviously, once the leadership doesn't see the urgency or align this as a priority in the organization, then whatever initiative follows out of that fizzles out, and so doesn't get the impact it needs to have. So one is lack of executive buy-in. The other I will talk about is the data overload. So in such exercises, you collect a lot of data, and HR people are noted for sitting on a world of data, but does not use it for the purpose it's for which reason this data is collected. So again, that is another reason, just collecting data without prioritizing or giving it the impetus for which the data was collected. The third reason I'll mention is fear of disrupting the status quo. HR people are supposed to be disruptors, but most often than not, when this exercise happens, you get information, you have to translate it into actions. What it means is that you have to bring about change of the current status, and sometimes these changes will come along with some costs, and so sometimes the fear of changing what exists will tend to prevent us from taking action. And then another reason is that most often than not, this is seen just as a ticking box exercise. So beginning of the year, there are activities that HR will plan to do. So yes, once a year we will run an employee engagement or employee satisfaction survey, gather information. So once the survey is conducted, we are done, and that will not give us the full benefit or impact of the exercise. And then maybe this will be the last one, even though there are a lot of them, but for want of time, I believe we'll just limit ourselves to just 5. So failure to communicate action plans. So the survey or the gathering of the data is not an end in itself. It's supposed to be the beginning of a certain process. At the end of the day, you want to know what your employees are thinking about key programs. You want to know how they feel about certain happenings in the organization. And so once you find out what next, you need to now channel that into actionable activities or measures to address the issues that have been identified. So it behoves on HR to put action plans together and communicate same to the employees. If we fail to do this, then we wouldn't have help the process. At the end of the day, we'll just collect data and sit on it. Now, the next part of the question was how HR leaders can overcome this roadblock or challenge. The first one I will mention is to prioritize issues strategically. So at the end of the day, see employee engagement or employee satisfaction as a strategy issue. So let us drive that into the annual strategy of the company, and not just as a box that has to be ticked. Once we see it as a strategic issue, then the feedback that we receive, we'll have to categorize these into themes, focus on high impact areas, how this will address, for example, work-life balance, how this will address career development, how this will address leadership trust, etc. So that's the first one. The next one is to secure executive buy-in. As I mentioned, one of the issues is lack of management buy-in. So HR will have to make a compelling case why employee satisfaction should be treated as a strategic issue, and get executive management on board. You have to use data to link employee engagement to productivity. For example, if employees are engaged, how will it relate to productivity? If employees are fully engaged, how will it relate to retention? For example, at the end of the day, when you have spent a lot of money on retaining your, or in training your employees, you don't want to have the back using a like a basket to fetch water analogy. So you bring in the people only for them to leave. So you have to show how employee engagement will translate to employee retention, even how it will translate to financial performance. At the end of the day, if your people are not producing high, or they are not highly productive, what it means is that you will not be producing enough, you will not be meeting your customer needs, and that will have a direct effect on your financial performance. So executive buy-in is very important, but HR will have to make a compelling business case to be able to have that kind of buy-in. And then also it's important that you build a continuous feedback loop. See employee engagement or satisfaction surveys not as a one-off annual activity, but there must be a continuous process of collecting data through town hall meetings, through departmental engagement, through one-on-one sessions, through focus group discussions, and a host of others. Then also it's important that there is transparency and communication, whatever, or at every point of the process. Make sure employees know what you are doing, employees know the end game. So you begin with the end in mind. Let them see the full picture. You don't hold on to information and be trickling in the information. So as and when you feel that you need to give some information, then you give it out. If people don't understand the full picture, it becomes difficult for them to fully commit to it. So ensuring transparency and communication is also very important. Then you make sure that you are addressing root causes and not just symptoms. At the end of the day, once you do the survey, you get the information, make sure that you are addressing root causes. That is very important. When you do that, you build trust into the employee engagement program. Then last but not least, empower managers as culture champions and advocates. HR only facilitates the process, but at the end of the day, you need to remember that line managers are there with the people. So if line managers are not singing from the same hymn book as the director or the head of HR, then it will be difficult to carry them along. Employees will not be carried along, and so you will have a program that is disjointed. So these are, for me, ways by which you can make sure that you are not just collecting data, but you are making it impactful. So in simple words, the key is to move from insight to action swiftly and visibly. Let people see what is happening. Employees will want to feel, so let them feel that something is happening with this process. I don't know.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a really loaded question, but as you mentioned, rightly mentioned, very important. We really do need to identify these roadblocks as HR professionals and try to navigate around these roadblocks to make these surveys impactful on employee retention and among other things. Right. So you in your earlier submission, you did mention that communication is one of the ways to navigate around these roadblocks. And I would love to know how do we effectively communicate the results of the employee satisfaction measurements back to employees in a way that builds trust and demonstrates a commitment to improvements. And as you rightly mentioned, rather than just checking off a box on the survey, how can we effectively communicate these results to our employees as professionals?
Thank you, Etonam. When it comes to employee engagement or satisfaction, communication is key. You can't underrate that at all. So if you fail to focus or yes, put a lot of emphasis on communication, your employee engagement program will suffer a stillbirth, basically dead on arrival. So one of the ways to focus or to ensure that you're able to communicate effectively is to frame. So yes, once you do the survey, you will bring out a report. Now ensure that you communicate the report as a conversation rather than as a report. Really, people are not interested in just dumping, a whole load of information or writing on them. What they want to know is, so how does it address the concerns we have raised, and then where do we fit in this whole process? So rather than just publishing a dense report, create a two-way dialogue. Make sure that in bringing out the report, there can be maybe a departmental meeting, a Q&A session, a town hall, interactive session. You have to bring the report in a forum where once you give the report, there is a forum or there is an opportunity for the audience or the employees to also give a response. So you bring and again, you break the report down into actionable bites that will help that there is always a very good interaction between the parties. So the first one is to make sure that the report is framed as a conversation and not just dumping a dense report on people. Also, it's important that you are able to share takeaways in a clear and digestible format. So to avoid making sure that you overwhelm or to avoid overwhelming employees with raw data, put them in bits. So for example, you can have top themes, what employees are saying collectively. So at the end of the day, what did you distill as as the general concerns or information that employees are trying to tell management, and then what positive insight is management taking out of that, as in what is management going to work or what's working well in the organization that management is going to build on. Also, what are the areas of improvement that, from what the employees have said, what areas need improvement, and then what actions are management going to take? What is the leadership committing to change? That is very important. So when you are able to put the information in this slide, it helps in the communication. People understand these things better. So at the end of the day, and again, when you are presenting, make sure you put this in meaningful infographics. If you can do video summaries, you can do that, or even executive messages. Put this in bites that helps people to really understand. Another way of communicating effectively is that you have to focus on transparency. Even when the results are not very perfect, of course, sometimes management will have to show employees that leaders can also be vulnerable. So yes, admit areas where leadership hasn't done too well, and so that you can begin to map out strategies for fixing these challenges. Another area I would like to mention is to, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is to reinforce the continuous feedback loop. Don't just handle this as an event. Employee engagement is not an event, but it's a continuous process. There should be a lot of feedback loops, anonymous suggestion channels, poll surveys, working groups. You can also introduce something I call innovation or creativity challenge, where management encourage employees to come up with creative ideas, and make sure that you reward great ideas that lead to changing of the status quo. So last but not least will be to highlight immediate actions taken based on feedback. At the end of the day, what employees will want to hear is that, based on your feedback, or based on what we heard you say, we have implemented XYZ, or you told us X and we are implementing Z. So these are ways by which, of course, these are not exhaustive, but these are ways by which you can communicate employee engagement feedback to employees, for them to feel that you have heard them and you are taking action on their concerns.
Right, and it is very important that employees feel heard at all times, and that will also help with some of the collaborative engagements at workplaces. Thank you, Mr. Isuman. If you're just joining us, this is the HR Digest brought to you by Sedat Consult, and today we are discussing the topic measuring employee satisfaction, and we are pleased to have Mr. Isuman with us here discussing this topic. Going into the chat box, we would love to engage with some of you, so we are hopping into the chat box now to see who is in here, to say a quick hello, and then we hop back into our interaction for today. So we have Happy Benedine. Waiting, okay. We are happy you are here. We are glad you could join us. And as you know, HR Digest is our our way of engaging as professionals on Sundays. Taking time off your Sunday to learn something is laudable to help us shape us as HR professionals, right? So we are happy to have you here with us. We have Michael Kisi. I am Michael Kisi watching from Kumasi. Thank you, Michael. And we have Georges joining us from Accra. Thank you, Georges, for joining us. And Happy says, yes, very important and loaded question. Yes, I believe that was the very first question. It was very loaded, but very important. So if you missed it, please do find time and play back. And let us engage beyond this interaction. If you have any questions for Mr. Suman or Sedat beyond this engagement, please feel free and drop your comments in the comment section, even beyond, if you don't have the chance to engage with us now. Thank you, Happy. And we have Mamiesi Isawa watching from Soto. I see you, big brother. So, Mr. Suman, I believe your little sister or younger sister is on here and she sees you. Mamiesi Isawa, we are glad you could join us. Right. So, our first question here is from Mr. Evans Kofi. And the question is, how do you ensure that your employee satisfaction metrics capture not just surface level contentment, but deeper indicators of engagement, purpose, and long-term retention? Right. So we have a question from Mr. Evans Kofi, and Mr. Suman will be glad if you could address this question for us before we go on.
Okay. So the question is on the, if you'd like to repeat the question for me, the employee engagement metrics.
Right. So how do you ensure that employee satisfaction metrics capture not just surface level contentment, but deeper indicators of engagement, purpose, and long-term retention? The question from Mr. Evans Kofi, please.
Right. Okay. That's a good question. So basically, of course, satisfaction metrics aren't just about spotting problems, but also a way of uncovering hidden strengths. It's important that you see it in that light, and there are so many ways by which you ensure that the metrics is measuring the right thing. So one of them is to identify positive outliers. So whenever you do surveys, you will get feedback on what is working or what employees are satisfied about and what is not working, what they are dissatisfied about. So it's always important to focus on the positive outliers. So for example, you'll find that in some departments, they have higher than average satisfaction. So the question you ask is, what are they doing differently, or what are they doing well? And then you can focus on the best practice from such department and scale it across the organization. So one way is by identifying positive outliers. Another way is by mapping engagement drivers. Satisfaction metrics often include open-ended responses, and that's very important. So analyzing what employees praise, whether it's leadership, autonomy, collaboration, or growth opportunities, can help reveal organic strengths that should be reinforced. So it's important to map the engagement drivers. Another way is by cross-analyzing high retention areas. Teams or roles with high retention rates often indicate strong cultural alignment. We should remember that whenever we are doing employee engagement survey, we are looking for ways, or we are looking for factors that underpin the cultural, or what is driving the culture in the organization. So when you find that some areas in the organization or some teams have high retention rates, what it means is that they have a higher cultural alignment. So you find out what is working for them, and you are able to pinpoint exactly the part of the culture that works and the part that doesn't work, and you based on that reinforce the ones that work. Also, another way is by leveraging positive sentiment in change management. In other words, identify people with the growth mindset. In every organization, there are people who, yes, irrespective of whatever challenges you have in the system, they are always looking at the positive side of things. These are people who have the abundant mentality and not a scarcity mentality, people who have a growth mindset. So you identify such positive change makers, and use them to drive the change process, or to develop your metrics. So these are ways I will mention as how you can develop the metrics to drive employee satisfaction in the organization.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Suman. Mr. Evans, I believe that your question has been duly answered or responded to. If you have any questions beyond the response Mr. Suman has provided in the response now, please do feel free and drop it in the comments, and we'll be glad to dissect it even further. So still in the chat box, we have Dora Mensa joining us. I am Dora, watching from Accra. Welcome, Dora. We are glad you could join us on today's episode of the HR Digest. And then we have Mr. Kisi, Mr. Michael Kisi, leaving us with a very nice comment. One way of ensuring that employee satisfaction surveys are effective is to ensure that you define what you want to achieve with the survey. This could include understanding specific issues or assessing engagement levels. You also need to ensure the anonymity and confidentiality of the employees to ensure honest, high participation rates, and genuine feedback. Thank you, Mr. Michael Kisi. Indeed, we have established on this engagement that feedback and transparent communication is one way to help with our employee satisfaction survey to get the most out of our employees. Right. So we are live now on the HR Digest, brought to you by Sedat Consult, and we are engaging with our viewers and listeners in the chat box. So we have Mr. Osman Beidu. Hello, I'm happy I have joined today too. We are glad you could make time to join us. I am really learning a lot. Indeed, we are learning a lot from our guest, Mr. Suman, and HR Digest is your go-to place to learn about everything and anything HR, and we are glad you could join us. Mr. Kisi is here, and he says, as my boss, Sir Abubakar Suman, said, there should be focus on actionable insights rather than just reporting results. Rightly said, Mr. Michael Kisi, and as indicated by Mr. Abubakar Suman. Right, so we have a question from Mamiesi Isawa. Mamiesi, we are glad you are engaging with us here. And her question is, what strategies have you found most effective in improving employee satisfaction. What strategies have you found most effective in improving employee satisfaction? Mr. Suman, your little sister is here with her question. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll give 5 of these strategies, and of course these are strategies that will ensure that your efforts receive the greatest impact. One is leadership buy-in and cultural alignment. When you are designing the your engagement program, make sure that there's leadership commitment. Leadership shouldn't see this exercise as just a box you tick, but it has to be seen as an important strategy to address key issues affecting employees. So under this, you need to make sure that employees need to know that their feedback will lead to real change. So HR will have to educate executives on the business impact of employee engagement. If you remember, early on, I did mention that the onus is on HR to make a compelling business case. And to be able to do that, you have to use data to show how employee engagement will translate into productivity, will translate into bottom line. So that is key. Also, you need to make sure that you integrate the engagement goals into leadership KPIs. It is said that you can only achieve what you measure. So when people know that you will measure what they do, then they will do what you expect. So if we want leaders to put focus on employee engagement, or we want to have their buy-in, then we have to make sure that we are measuring them on that. If they think they are doing HR a favor by taking part in this engagement activities, then they relegate it to a second or a third tier activity. So make sure that when you are drafting or formulating KPIs, this finds its way in there. And then also ensure managers understand how to interpret and act on satisfaction surveys. So that is just on the leadership buy-in. Then the next one is to establish a psychological safety for honest feedback. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that employees are safe. And I think I saw Mr. Kisi indicating that there must be some anonymity. If employees know that they are safe, then they will be able to give their views honestly and genuinely. Okay, so there must be some anonymity in the surveys, and then also foster a feedback culture where concerns are welcomed and not punished. I have witnessed cases where employees give honest feedback, and their bosses come to HR and ask, can you let us know who said this or who said that? And if employees cannot be safe in giving feedback, then the exercise will not be successful. And then also ensure that there is an open door policy that encourages real conversations. The third point or strategy is to start with a simple, actionable pulse survey. So as an organization, if it's the first time you are engaging in an engagement survey, don't start with a complex, because engagement survey can be complex. Just start with, just a quick pulse check, maybe 5 to 10 questions just to gauge the workplace sentiment. It's like, testing your own pulse, So start with something like that. whatever feedback you get, make sure you put them into core themes, and move beyond that and start addressing them, put them into actionable measures. So once you do that, you give the employees the feedback, they know that, well, you came to them for feedback. Out of that, some policies have come out of that, and so next time when you decide to engage them on that, they'll be forthcoming with feedback. Number 4 will be to identify and prioritize high impact areas. Yes, when you do the surveys, you will get a whole lot of things. Don't just try to jump on the quick fixes, the optics, the one that makes you look good. So you start putting in place things that when people come around, maybe when visitors come around, you see that, oh, this company, they think about their staff because you have put some coffee machine somewhere. Don't be quick to do. Of course, quick fixes are important, but make sure that you are addressing high impact areas. For example, talent management. For example, work-life balance. These are things that are meaningful to employees. So they may be long-term, but once you put in the measures, employees see that, okay, you started working on this, and you can show them that the end game, maybe they will see the results in 2 years, in 3 years' time. They will work with you through the process. Last but not least, again, we come back to communication. I think for communication, we can't, overemphasize it. It's communication. It has to be transparent, and then there must be immediate follow-through. So publicly share survey results in a clear, digestible format. You don't want to complicate things for employees. Also, acknowledge top concerns, both positive and areas that need improvement. And then also outline action plans showing what leadership will do next, what leadership will do now and into the future. Make sure that there's a clear action plan, and then continue the conversation with regular updates and visible changes. Let me repeat, employee engagement is not an event. It is a continuous, regular process that you will have to embark on. So, Mamiesi, these are some strategies I will recommend for you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mamiesi. I believe your question has been answered, right? And as Mr. Asuman rightly said, communication is key in the entire measurement period for employee satisfaction. And it should not just be a one-off event, and the format should not just be ticking of boxes, but rather engaging for employees to actually state what is going on to help us as professionals to shape key areas to ensure retention, among other things. This is the HR Digest, and we are discussing measuring employee satisfaction. At this point, we would like to take a short break, and we'll be back to engage with you on the comment section and engage with Mr. Asuman on various aspects of this topic. So we'll catch you in a bit. Please stick and stay. Don't go anywhere. This is the right place for you on a Sunday. So we'll see you in a bit. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. It's good to have you all back on. This is the HR Digest brought to you by Sedat Consult. And this is the place to be on a Sunday, actually, as HR professionals, because it is a great learning platform for us as professionals. And today we have a great expert in the field, in the person of Mr. Suman, taking us through measuring employee satisfaction. Right, Mr. Suman, we knocked off with a question on strategy from Mamiesi. And before we go into the chat box to engage with our colleagues who may have joined us in the course of the interaction, I would want to know, I would want to of satisfaction. What would you recommend as first step to diagnosing the root cause and developing an effective intervention strategy to deal with with the identified dip in that area of satisfaction?
Your line went off briefly. I don't know if I got you right.
Okay.
Are you asking about how to diagnose the root cause and develop an effective intervention strategy?
Yes, please. Rightly so.
Okay. So, all right. Um, so yes, whenever there is the need to carry out an employee engagement or employee satisfaction survey, you don't just jump at professing solutions when you don't know what the issue is. So it is always important that you find out whenever you in the organization you get the feel that things are not going well and something has to be done. HR is not or cannot act like a magician where you think you can get into people's head and proffer solutions for how to fix the issues. The first thing you need to do is to get to them to find out exactly what they think about issues. Now, once you've done that and you have the data, you have to take a look at the data. The main reason why you decided to do the survey is to get data. So when you have the data, the first step, take a look at the data, analyze the data. Okay. And to analyze the data, you need to segment the responses to see if the satisfaction is concentrated in specific teams, areas. How are the demographics even affecting the responses? People who are maybe who are less than 5 years in the organization, what are they saying? Those who are over 5 years, what are they saying? Those in production, what are they saying? Those in support. So you need to distill the information from the various angles you have in the organization. Then you look for patterns, then you compare related metrics. Example, work-life balance scores, has workload also increased and stuff like that. So the first thing to do is to take a look at the data and see what the data tells you. And really, it can be very interesting what you will glean from the data. Then step 2 is to conduct employee listening sessions. See, the data will tell you something. What the data will not tell you is the stories behind the information. That the data won't tell you. So it is very important for you to get the full picture. You have the quantitative data from the people or from the employees. you need to add the qualitative insights, and that is when you are able to engage focus groups, stay interviews, anonymous feedback sessions, and stuff like that. So have some sessions with employees to help you understand the data. So, for example, questions like what has changed in the workplace that might contribute to this decline, and what solutions do employees themselves suggest. Sometimes the best solutions will come from the employees. Step 3 will be to assess the organizational and the leadership impact. So sometimes the satisfaction stems from leadership gaps, ambiguous expectations, or cultural shifts. Maybe what is the management style doing to the employees? Are leaders providing enough support and recognition? Internal policies. Has there been any recent change in policy that is inadvertently causing frustration? Employee workload and resources. Are teams stretched thin, and what have you? So you need to look at these organizational factors as well. And then step 4 will be to develop a targeted action plan. You don't want to bring out a one-size-fits-all solution and expect that the problem will be solved. Once the root cause is clear, what you need to do is to create an intervention strategy that is tailored. So, for example, what are the quick wins that you can benefit from? What some people in a project called the low-hanging fruits. These are small changes that employees can feel right away, so you can put them in place quickly. Then you can have long-term or medium-term solutions, things that are structural in nature. If you have to change the structure before you can have impact, those ones that you can't do it overnight, but you can put in place a plan to be able to. And then leadership alignment, ensure that the executives and managers own the action plan and they are reinforcing improvements at the factory or the shop floor. Then last but not least is to communicate transparently and track progress. If you've realized, every question that I've been asked, I respond, and somewhere along the line, communication will appear. Don't underrate communication at all. And we must remember that when it comes to communication, what you say, what you intend to say, what is heard, and what is understood are different. Every step of the way, there can be distortions. You can intend one thing, but how you say it might not translate what you are thinking. Then what you say and what is heard, you say one thing and somebody will hear something else. And even when they hear you correctly, do they understand? So communication is very important. At the end of the day, employees need to understand that you have heard them. You are telling them what you are doing to fix what you heard them say, and how they will see improvement going forward. You have to communicate these things very well, so that you'll be able to get to the bottom of it and make sure you are resolving the issues that have been presented to you by the employees.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Asuman. And let me just stress on the last point, because I think it is a very, very important point, and it has been running through almost all the questions. Communication, clear communication, and transparent communication. Just so right from intention to implementation, we have the same story running through for everyone, right? From HR to the employees implementation. Thank you, Mr. Suman. So back at the chat box, we really do love to hear from all of you, and that's why we'll keep going back into the comment session. So we have Mr. Ivan Scoffy connecting with us from Accra, and he says, I love the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Ivan Scoffy, and I believe we've addressed your question earlier. Thank you. And then we have Madam Linda Buama joining us from Accra. Thank you, Linda, and we are glad you could join us today. Then we have a question from Mr. Isuman Beidu. And the question is, please, if you have a staff who seemingly unite to reject a change initiated by HR, how do you approach it? In this case, it is not obvious what the survey will tell. Mr. Mr. Osman has a question for us, and it is on staff uniting to reject change initiated by HR, as is displayed here. So please, if you have a staff who willingly unites to reject a change initiated by HR, how do you approach it? In this case, it is not obvious that what the survey would tell, right?
So I'll ask a rhetorical question and maybe answer the question myself. The question I'll ask is, how did HR initiate the change? You see, and I think I mentioned it earlier. If HR sits in its office and believes that they know what is best for employees, then the rejection can happen. You see, these days we are moving towards the point where HR co-develops with employees, even policies. Gone were the days when HR will sit in the comforts of his office and develop policies and just expect that employees will follow willy-nilly. These days, you have to co-develop the policies with them. So you bring out a draft, you send it through the line management, they go, they discuss with them, they get input, they come back, bring their input, you inculcate the input. If, of course, if some of the issues you are bringing in the policy are you derive the source from a law. Let's say the Labor Act is asking us to do something, and so you've put that in a policy. If the employees are giving an alternate view, what you now have to do is to go back and educate them and let them understand that, well, on this item, it is law. So unless the law is changed, we don't have a choice. We will have to go by the law. But if it is not law, you have to make sure that you are taking input. And so I need to understand exactly how the change was initiated for the employees to reject. But my advice is that always carry the employees along. Let them understand the basis for the change. Let them understand what's in it for them. And I believe once you go through these processes, the communication is top-notch and you are carrying them along. Of course, there is always people sometimes are not comfortable with change because changing the status quo will come along with some discomfort to them. Your job as HR is to allay those fears, let them know the benefits, the positives of the change, so that they will not dwell on the negatives or what they think will not inure to their benefit. So the process matters. And that is what I will tell Osman, that Osman, please make sure the process of bringing that change matters. I always tell people to trust the process. Do not judge the outcome. Sometimes people they judge the outcome even before it happens. For me, trust the process. Whatever outcomes comes out of the process, once we focus on the process and we work on the process, whatever outcomes comes out will be the best outcome for all of us. So don't let us prejudge the outcome even before we get there.
Okay, so Mr. Osman, trust the process and carry your team along throughout the process, just so every loophole or gap or dip is clearly stated for them to better appreciate whatever the change would be bringing on board. Thank you, Mr. Suman, for that. We have a comment from Mr. Michael Kisi, and I believe it's in reference to communicating feedback to our employees. And he says, I also think it is important to share the results with employees and outline the steps the organization will take to implement the findings or recommendations from the survey. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kisi. And as we rightly said, communication is key. Clear and transparent feedback to the team is important. Then we have a question for Mr. Suman from Dora Mensa. What will you do if management does not act on your recommendation to ensure employee engagement? What will you do if management does not act on your recommendation? From Madam Dora Mensa.
Dora, it is, in fact, one of the occupational hazards of HR professionals or practitioners is to be able to sell or market ideas to executive management for them to buy in. That is key. If you get it right, remember that executive management is or should be the number one supporter of HR. So, excuse me, if you are unable or your inability to bring them on board will always cause issues for you. So your job will be to look for the best ways to get through to executive management. And to do that, you have to speak the language of executive management. And that is where data comes in. HR people don't like figures and data. Please make sure you master HR analytics. Let the data speak for you. Connect the data to productivity. Executive management is interested in high productivity. Show them how your initiatives is going to drive productivity. Show them how your initiatives are going to drive the bottom line. There is no way executive management will not buy into HR programs when they see that it has a direct or indirect link to the bottom line. At the end of the day, making profits, unless the organization is a non-profit making entity, but making profits is the key or the number one priority of every organization. So what, as HR professional, you have to show is how your programs are going to drive or improve that financial performance. If you are able to do this link, trust me, Dora, executive management will act on your recommendations. If you just make recommendations based on nothing, then even me as an HR person and my team members will tell you that I drive a very high bargain. When you bring proposals to me, I'll ask you very difficult questions. And if you're unable to answer, you have to take those recommendations back and go and work on them. Because once I take your recommendations, I own them. I have to be able to go and convince somebody else. You understand? So one thing HR people, we don't do well, and so makes it difficult for us to sell our recommendations to executive management, is we fail to support them, or we fail to ground them in data. So my advice, please let the data speak for you.
Right. Let the data speak for you. And as Mrs. Suman said, yes, as professionals, we should really be on top of our data game, because you can't tell a story without backing it with facts. To give you a solid story to put before your management team, without that, you will just be selling a telltale. Thank you, Mr. Suman. So, for our professionals on here, let's get our data game strong and build better stories to present to management to get their buy-in at all times. Thank you. So we have Mamiesi Isawa saying, thank you so much, very insightful. Thank you, Mamiesi. I believe your question was answered well. And we have a comment from Mr. Evans Kofi, who says a well-executed employee satisfaction survey provides several key benefits to an organization. And we have improved retention, which would say that understanding employee concerns, acting on them helps reduce turnover, saving costs related to recruitment and training. So that's for improved retention. Then we have increased productivity, and he says satisfied employees are generally more motivated, engaged, and productive in their roles. Then we have better workplace culture, which says regular feedback fosters a culture of transparency, trust, and continuous improvement. It is therefore important for every HR professional to develop a structured employee engagement to obtain the yield satisfaction. Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans, for your comments. We are grateful for the thoughts that you shared on this topic, and we'll seek to learn more on what you have provided. So, Mr. Suman, we have a question for you again from Mamiesi Isawa. And the question is, how do HR policies adapt to changing employee expectations? Sorry. Expectations and industry trends. Let me take that again. How do HR policies adapt to changing employee expectations and industry trends?
Okay. Very good question. Thank you, Mamiesi. So, HR policies are not set in stone. They are organisms, so they have to change to suit changing times. If you have policies that have been in place for years without review, what will happen is that at some point they will not be fit for purpose. You will realize that the practice would have changed and moved on and be at variance with the policy. And those are the times when you realize that people are breaching the policy a lot because the policies are not in tune with the current time. So, one, for employee changing or changing employee expectations, of course, that is why we have engagement surveys. Once you do surveys quite often, you get into the minds of employees. They will tell you how they feel about certain policies and practices of the organization. And so it helps you to get first-hand information, and then based on which you may want to review some of the policies. And even during the review process, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you don't just sit in your office and review the policies and expect that they will be accepted hook, line, and sinker by the employees. You have to make sure that you are co-developing it with them. So put in place a process that allows for employee input into the development of the policy process. So that is how you ensure that you are able to meet the expectations. When it comes to the changing trends, of course, as HR people, remember that your organization cannot, or HR is not just practice in your organization. There's a world out there now. Technology has made the world very, very small, and so you must research, you must belong to professional HR professional associations so that you know what is going on around you. You don't wait for or you don't wait to be taken by events before you play catch up. But you know, if issues start happening elsewhere in the world, know that in no time they will walk into your organization or walk into your country. So once you see them happening elsewhere, then, for example, an issue like, let's say, paternity leave. Currently, paternity leave is not law in Ghana, but in other places, the law has made it possible. So you don't wait for it to become law in Ghana before, as an HR professional, you tune your mind to it. So you can begin to look for data around the world and start pushing that narrative, or making such presentations to your executive management, and you can even lead the process even before it becomes law in your country. So these are ways by which HR policies can adapt to changing employee expectations and also to industry trends. I believe I've answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mamiesi, please let us know if your question has been duly responded to. So we have Linda. My network is not helping. Hope the meeting. Yes, please. You can always go back and view this recording on all our platforms on YouTube. Especially, this would be on there. And beyond this interaction, you can always leave your question and we would respond accordingly. We have Dora Mensa. Thank you. Excellent response. Okay, great. So her response, her question has been responded to. And then we have Mr. Usman, who says, yes, please, you engage employees in the initiation, but a grapevine tells you that tells you in the finalization meeting they have planned to unite and reject. Okay, so I think there's a follow-up question or comment to his question on employees coming together to reject change. And he's saying that a grapevine tells you that they have planned to unite to reject it. So how would you deal with that? Mr. Suman,
Let me quickly respond to that. You see, so from what Osman is saying, he engages them at the initiation. You see, engagement is not only done at initiation. It should be, you remember I mentioned the co-development process. Make sure that every step of the way you are getting input from the workforce. If you engage them from initiation and then you shut them out, so yes, you initially get their views on or how they feel about certain things, and now you want to develop programs or policies. You don't shut them out. You can do a draft and then go back to them to seek their input. Please carry them along the process so that you don't have the employees rejecting whatever you bring out at the end of the day. Engagement is very important, and engagement is not just at the beginning. You engage at the beginning, you engage somewhere along the process. In the once you develop, you bring up a draft, you go back to them to get their input, before you finalize. Else, you might encounter these challenges. If there are recognizable groupings in the organization, let's say a union or employee associations, focus groups, departmental, so engage them at various levels. Make sure that the employees feel heard and they feel you've involved them. So they should feel heard, they should feel involved. And I believe once they have input in there, and I've encountered this several times. Yes, I've seen where you don't involve employees, how they will respond to your programs, and then when you involve them, how they will respond. I will always put my bet on involving them. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Osman, the response from Mr. Suman. Right. So we'd love to wrap up here. But before we go, I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but I would want to seek your advice if there's anything we might have missed in the earlier submission, especially for organizations that are starting their journey on measuring employee satisfaction. What would you advise they focus their initial efforts to ensure the greatest impact? And if there are any take-home nuggets we can get from you, if we might have missed it in the course of the interaction, would love to hear from you before we end today's session, Mr. Suman.
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. I think I may have even touched on some of these when I was responding to a question on strategy, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe I'll just quickly go through. So one of them is to make sure that you establish a clear purpose for your engagement satisfaction or employee satisfaction or engagement program. What do you seek to achieve with that? Is it just a question of wanting to tick a box, or you really want to address issues that are meaningful to employees and that will be impactful? So that is one. Two, you need to build a culture of open feedback. Make sure that you are creating a workplace where people feel safe to share honest feedback. Do employees trust leadership? Have you provided them with a psychological safety net so that they can voice out their concerns freely? Excuse me. And then do they feel that leaders will actively listen and engage beyond just getting the data? So that is key. And then you have to start small. And so for when an organization is starting, start small with just a pulse survey, and I think I mentioned that earlier. And then you can iterate as you go along. So once you start small, you can be gradually adding a few things, because if you start big, or if the program is complex, you will burn out, and employees will not feel the impact. So start small, and as you go along, you gradually add on, and then you can scale up. Number 4 will be to mix both the qualitative and the quantitative methods. So the survey will give you the quantitative. Make sure that once you have the numbers, you follow up with some qualitative sessions. So, for example, you can do the open-ended, feedback, focus groups, departmental, engagement town halls, where you can have the background, the context behind the survey numbers. Then number 5, make sure that there is leadership buy-in. At the end of the day, these things are going to be implemented through the line management. So from top level, middle level, and lower level management, there must be buy-in at all levels. Then, as a bonus, let's make sure we communicate and act transparently. That is very important.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Suman, for this insightful engagement. And as we're taking away from us from this interaction today, we need to communicate and be transparent in all aspects. And then for those of us who are starting with the measurement of employee satisfaction, as he rightly said, we start off small. We don't go straight diving into the big metrics we have around. We can just start small from feedback from town halls, poll surveys, and get our data and facts right to build a solid story for management to buy in, because without them, we may not make any headway with feedback and implementation with the team. All right, so we are ending with a comment from Ebenezer Entil, who says, "Sir, you've made my day. Mr. Suman, you've made Mr. Ebenezer's day. Winning HR proposals is all about how you present it," rightly said. A business case approach leaves management no options. Yes. So, Mr. Suman, we are glad you've made Mr. Ebenezer's day, and you've made all of us our day, because we really learned a lot from you through this engagement. So we would want to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Suman, for sharing practical strategies and some serious nuggets on how to turn employee satisfaction from metric into movement. As you said, it is not an event, but a continuous process. And we are sparked to keep doing or keep engaging our employees beyond the survey to get the most out of them. We want to say thank you, Mr. Suman. And before we wrap off, would want to wish everyone on here again a happy African Union Day. May we all strive to be the best that we can be, and let's continue building workplaces that are strong and diverse and united as the continent that we celebrate today. So until next time, stay engaged, stay curious, and keep putting people first. This has been the HR Digest, brought to you by Sedat Consult. Thank you very much, and have a great week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.